On a breezy October day, painted red and orange with crisp autumn leaves, I walked into the wedding hall for the moment I'd waited for ever since I was a young girl. Under the flickering camera flashes and the jubilant cheers of family and friends, I took a moment to look at the big, warm hand that held steadfast to mine, the hand of a father for 24 years that had carried me from the moment I was born, had lifted me up from danger and death, and had pointed me to God in times of trouble and failure. Now, holding this hand as I walked down the wedding aisle, I realized that this hand had been not only that of my father, but also that of God, who had always been with me. Even before the beginning of life, God's hand had planned me, shaped me, carried me, protected me, and guided me to where I was today. And finally, 24 years later, on a beautiful October day, God's hand had led me to my beloved husband. Ever since my mother first told me that marriage is important when I was 13, I had prayed every day for my future spouse with a list of 30 items. But over time, God began to prove to me how far my ideal prayer list fell short of God's thoughts. What I wanted was to meet a man with a slim-fit body, of moderate height, with thickly framed glasses, and a love for reading. What I dreamed of was a natural encounter, perhaps at college, and after 2 years of dating, a small wedding with family and friends. But the plan of God, which led me to a 6'3" former high school football player, to whom I was to commit my entire life in a single month, was beyond what I could comprehend. The reason why I decided to marry this man was neither a moment's choice nor a fluttering emotion. The only reason I was able to obey God's will was because of the relationship with God that I had built over the preceding 24 years. It was this relationship that opened my eyes to see beyond my thoughts and emotions, to recognize the most perfect companion that God had predestined for my life. And it was this relationship that ultimately brought to me the greatest blessing of marrying my husband at 24. Marriage is not about meeting the person whom I deem most ideal, but meeting the person whom God deems most ideal. In marital decisions, many young people today look at personality, family background, occupation, and other self-centered standards. Some individuals even choose to marry without any parental intervention. But if these individuals so trust their independent sense of judgment, why do so many of their marriages end in brokenness, failure, and divorce? Today in South Korea, more than 300 married couples divorce each day. This ranks 9th among OECD member countries and 1st in Asia. The decision that they had once been so confident about in a few years ends in regret. A marital judgment based on self-centered emotions, thoughts, and standards is clearly insufficient to recognize the most ideal spouse. There is something young Christian men and women should remember. There is only one spouse whom God has prepared for us, and this spouse is the most ideal partner for us in God's eyes. Therefore, until the day that God leads us to this encounter, we need to equip ourselves, not with our appearance and worldly standards, but with open eyes, open ears, and an open heart to recognize the will of God. Another thing to remember is that even a failed marriage, broken premarital chastity, and frustrated hopes for marriage can be restored in Jesus Christ. Have you given up on yourself due to a past divorce? Are you living in guilt due to a momentary wrong choice? Are your hopes of marriage crushed by low self-esteem and distrust of people? Even if you have been divorced, have lost premarital chastity, and have suffered through crushed hopes, there is no failure that can stand up against Jesus. In the Bible, the majority of figures that represent our brideship to Jesus, including Judah's daughter-in-law Tamar, the prostitute Rahab, and the widow Ruth, were ethically and morally fallen people. This fallenness applies not only to those who have suffered through divorce, lost premarital chastity, and experienced crushed hopes, but also to every one of us. Born with original sin, we are all unqualified to become brides of Jesus. However, the good news is that Jesus has given us a chance for restoration. In Jesus, even a broken marriage, lost premarital chastity, and crushed self-esteem can be completely restored. I hope that Marriage Story of Mary becomes not a book of didactic knowledge, but a book of God's love for you. I pray that Marriage Story of Mary does not stop at giving tips and advice for a successful marriage, but goes beyond to touch your heart as God calls you to make new decisions in your walk with Him.